From the Television 12 Broadcast Plaza, this is the news with Dennis Schrieffer, Andy Joyce, Bob Walker, and Tom Heaps.
Good evening. My colleague Andy Joyce still on vacation for this week. The Rock Island Railroad strike may be a step closer to being resolved, and that's because President Carter entered the picture today.
This afternoon, President Carter ordered striking Rock Island employees back to work for a 60-day cooling-off period. Carter was concerned that the more than 3-week-old strike would tie up vital grain shipments throughout the Midwest. But Chris Napton of the Chicago Rock Island offices told us more grain was shipped during the 25 days of the strike than during the 25 days preceding the strike. A back-to-work study is scheduled to be finished Monday, but it is not clear how long it will take to get employees back on the job. Napton says that Rock Island officials are happy about the president's order since it shows that the government finally recognizes the essential services of the railroad. Napton adds that it won't be possible to get all Rock Island employees back to work immediately because of the poor financial condition of the company. If Rock Island cannot operate on its own, the president has asked the Interstate Commerce Commission to take appropriate action, probably meaning that other railroads would begin operating on Rock Island tracks. For the news, Pat Palmer, Television 12.
State workers have slaughtered and buried 112 contaminated cattle at an industrial waste site near Furley. That's just northeast of Wichita. The Environmental Protection Agency approved the site late yesterday, and state officials moved quickly to get the PCB-infected cattle off of their hands. The cattle were impounded at a western Kansas feedlot after it was learned last month that the animals had been exposed to the cancer-causing chemical. 2 of the cattle died when they were buried at the feedlot, which is an unapproved site. They're not able to contain the contamination. State environmental officials feared that more cattle might die at the feedlot if burials at the Furley waste site were not hurried. EPA experts say that the Furley site is one of the safest PCB dumps in the nation. And some of the DC-9s that fly into and out of Wichita may have problems. Republic Airlines, which just acquired Southern Airways and operates DC-9s here, says that minute cracks were found on the rear pressure bulkheads of 2 of its jets. A Republic spokesman said that the cracks were found in a different area of the bulkhead than the ones found on an Air Canada DC-9. Those jets have been grounded for inspection since an Air Canada plane lost a tail cone. And Kansas Senator Bob Dole today called for the removal of all Titan II missiles in Kansas, Arkansas, and Arizona. Dole said that the maintenance on the aging missiles is inadequate and endangers the public welfare. Dole did not suggest an alternative to the Titan system. Congressman Dan Glickman called Dole's statements politically motivated, aimed at killing Glickman's efforts to have a study done on the Titan II system. Well, county leaders are being threatened by a $145,000 overrun in the road and highway maintenance budget. Mike Taylor reports that emergency steps are being taken to remedy that problem.
Officials say if current spending continues, the Public Works road maintenance budget will run dry long before the end of the year, violating state cash basis and budget laws. Immediate cutbacks will start to keep the careless spending from becoming a financial disaster. County Budget Chief John Philbrick, however, denies the budget overruns are a serious situation.
Before this, or did you have tabs on this before? Did you know that this...
Surely.
Okay, so this did not come as a surprise to you?
No, I think if you catch something 4 months before the end of the year, you're not going to be in any trouble.
Philbrick would not say sloppy spending caused the crunch, but Commissioner Tom Scott told a different story. According to Scott, the county bid on an improvement project at Central and Webb Road after engineer Grover McClure assured the commission the money for that project was available. It was not, and 2 other projects suddenly became endangered.
And in 1978, when we sat and heard the budgets for 79, these 2 projects was the ones that was to be done.
Still, Scott is not ready to pin blame on McClure or anyone else. To keep the till from running dry, the road division must cut out supplies and repairs, building into next year's budget an automatic deficit. For the news, Mike Taylor, Television 12.
The world's oldest profession moves from the rap parlors to the streets, and we'll have details in a moment. Wichita police say that their crackdown on prostitution has been a success. So successful that the prostitutes, once working the wrap parlors and escort services, are now working the streets.
Just before the crackdown began, police say there were 21 different businesses where girls were being sold by the hour. Now all but 6 of those shops are closed, leaving the prostitutes the streets as the place to get their customers. Earlier this week, 2 women were picked up and charged with just that, soliciting sex on the streets of Wichita.
One of the places that we've made some cases is on the streets. Some of the prostitutes have gone back to the streets where they normally operate, and there's been several arrests made there.
You mean we're now having girls standing at light poles saying, "Hey, mister, $10, $20, whatever"?
No, it didn't quite that way, but they're making the contacts on the street.
Colonel Coffey adds the Wichita Eagle Beacon's decision to drop its massage parlor ads from the personal columns in the newspaper did help close down some of the shops, because without some kind of an advertisement, people would not know where to go for such services unless they find someone waiting now at a street light or in a bar. If the prostitutes are caught, they will be arrested, just like the other 30 were during the past 4 weeks, as part of the crackdown on sex for sale in Wichita. For the news, George Winters, Television 12.
2 former Wichita Water Department employees won't be getting their jobs back. An investigation shows that the men misused city materials. Steve Lancaster has the details.
As Television 12 News reported yesterday, the 2 unnamed Water Department employees were cleared of any criminal wrongdoing in the case. However, today the Water Department announced the 2 won't be returning to work because of the improprieties of the case. The 2 employees did some plumbing work at a residence that one of the men had inspected earlier in the same day. That work resulted in the use of city materials. In question are a couple of pipe fittings. The use of the pipe fittings is not considered stealing because they were used at a point where the private property joined that of the city's. So under state law, the city was never deprived of the use of its property. Therefore, no crime was committed. Even though the city found nothing criminal in the 2 men's actions, they did see a number of improprieties.
The value of the city materials used on that job are inconsequential. They were terminated because the Water Department objected to, first of all, the employees who would inspect a customer's premises and make recommendations as to who would pay for repairs, then offering to do the repairs and doing the repairs. Secondly, they did work that needed to be done by a licensed plumber without a license, and they did not take out a permit to do the work. So although what they did was not criminal, it was wrong as far as the Water Department was concerned.
For the news, Steve Lancaster, Television 12.
Back to the drawing board for Kansas Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Insurance Commissioner Fletcher Bell today rejected a $27.7 million insurance rate hike requested by the company. Bell called the request unreasonable, excessive, and unfairly discriminatory. The insurance company may now apply for a formal hearing or revise its rate request or submit the same application with additional background information. The art of holography is on exhibit at the Ulrich Museum at Wichita State University. Through the Looking Glass, as curator Paul Barefoot titled the exhibit, is a series of laser light photographs portraying 3-dimensional objects.
They're 3-dimensional. You can actually measure that. These 360-degree pieces, you can actually measure them length and the width and the depth. They don't have the substance. They retain, well, they retain much more of the characteristics of the object. Like I was telling you on the one piece, a droplet of water in a hologram retains, if you were to put it up to a microscope, you could see the microscopic organisms inside the water, 3-dimensionally.
Well, our Bob Walker is an artist in his own right. In a moment, we'll see what he's created on tonight's Weather Mats. That's right. You put a lot of tender, loving care into that board before you come out here every night.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yes, indeed.
I'll tell you what else we're going to put on there tonight, along with radar, a few echoes of precipitation finally in the state.
All right.
A few developing, and we'll tell you where they are and what's going to happen in a moment.
Let's look for it.
Very pleasant good evening, everyone. Nice to have you with us and nice to report. We do have some rain in the state tonight, some showers. We'll take a look at radar in just a moment. Those are not the showers we're talking about. Those are some of the lawns that need the rain so badly. It's 77 in Wichita, 82 in Hutchinson. High today was 78, the low this morning 61. The humidity right on the breaking point, 50-50. Barometer falling at 29.88 inches, southeast at 6. No precipitation since midnight of last night, and what's happening may not come our way after all. Satellite picture tonight indicates a cold front that moved down from the Pacific Northwest, and it's going to continue to move through Colorado and portions of Kansas, and should be in sections of Missouri by late tomorrow afternoon. This is a visual picture of the cold front. Satellite projected just a moment ago. The colder front behind it, of course, is going to have cooler air come the latter part of the week and the weekend as well. There are sunny conditions this evening in Washington and Oregon, and as far as thundershower activity is concerned, it's beginning to break out in the southwest part of Colorado and the northwest part of Kansas. One of the cold spots around the country last night was beautiful Winter Park, Colorado. And Winter Park, of course, will soon be getting the ski slopes ready in a couple of weeks or so. The thundershower activity, as we said, is going to be moving south to west, and the cold front will continue to move down. Perhaps the big news all around the country today was the heavy flooding and the heavy rains. The rains continued in Louisiana and portions of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and the Florida coast as well. Houston, Texas, for example, the other day had a couple of tornadoes. Now many streets are flooded after about 15 inches of rain in the past 24 hours. Let's take a look at the official National Weather Service radar picture from Mid-Continent Airport and pick out those echoes of precipitation. They're near Syracuse, and at this time they're beginning to move south to southwest. It's a small band of precipitation, a few light thundershower activities, and as far as the current movement is concerned, we don't anticipate any great shower activity here. Forecast for the next couple of days, dry and mild, nighttime lows in the 50s, daytime highs in the upper 70s. And currently around the Television 12 viewing area, we have cloudy to partly cloudy skies, 75 in Goodland, 79 in Topeka, 80 in Salina, 81 in Hutchinson, and 79 in Wichita. The flight forecast, 2 to 4,000. That's the ceiling. Winds north-northeast at 18, 3 miles. Visibility in haze. And the forecast for the rest of tonight, it's going to be cloudy and cool, low about 55, sunset 7:30, and tomorrow, gradual clearing and mild. The high about 75, north 5 to 15. Sunrise in the morning will be at 7:16, and all in all, it's still only about a 20% chance of rain for our area. We'll say easy does it. Dennis?
High may go up tomorrow morning. Going to be all right about mid-morning?
Clearing about midday. Should be nice.
Good. Okay, thank you, Bob. Former Interior Undersecretary Kent Frizzell told the Kansas Independent Oilman today that oil and natural gas would continue to be the top 2 sources of U.S. energy. Frizzell also told that group that their domestic production efforts will be needed desperately, and that he also opposes the suggested windfall profits tax. He pointed out that the government already takes $60 out of every $100 profit that the oilmen make. Frizzell is also a former Kansas Attorney General. If the Royals play their cards in baseball right tonight, they could get mighty close to first place. Tom Heaps will have that for us in a moment. This is it.
Yep, big one.
Yep.
Big one tonight.
They got to do it tonight.
Well, they don't have to, but
they should.
Sure would be a good idea, wouldn't it? Okay. A chance for the Royals to take 3 or 4 from the Angels tonight and move to within 1 game of them in the American League West. Last night, Larry Gura pitched a super game, and the Royals came back to within 2.
Last night in Kansas City, Nolan Ryan was wild, and that usually spells bad news. Larry Gura, the winner.
And the Minnesota Twins kept pace in the pennant race this afternoon. They beat the New York Yankees 3-1. There have been some rumors floating around town that the Chicago Cubs were thinking of dropping their affiliation with the Wichita Aeros. That was supposed to be mainly because of the artificial infield here compared to the real grass in Chicago. Well, the Aeros put all those rumors to rest today by announcing the Cubs will be back next year. They're promising increased involvement with both the Aeros and the city of Wichita. Speaking of the Aeros and the Cubs, if you wondered what might have happened to Aeros slugger Carl Pagel, he was called up to the Cubs in September, batted 1 time, and now he's back home in Phoenix. The reason, a hairline fracture in his hand, no major problem. He will be back next year. For this week's fishing report, 12 fishing expert Jim Ziner and myself headed up to Harvey County Lake East. It is a relatively new lake, and if you haven't been there, you'll need not only your state fishing license, but a county permit too. And both of them are available at the lake. It's a pretty place to relax and have fun, and Jim says a good place to fish too.
Pretty good crappie fishing here now. Those crappie run nice size. We was catching them on a transparent yellow swim tail, but I believe if we'd brought a bucket of minnows with us, Tom, we'd have caught a lot of nice crappie this morning. Standing trees out here in this lake make an awfully nice place to catch crappie and bass, black bass. And I understand they caught a 5.5-pound black bass here yesterday on a little chartreuse bait. So that'd be similar to the color of the transparent yellow we was using this morning, Tom.
Tonight at 10, the weekend fishing forecast. In tonight's sports headlines, the Major League Umpires Association has filed charges of unfair labor practices against the National League. It's all in connection with the strike at the beginning of the year. The umpires say minor league umpires who worked during the strike actually got better deals than the regular umps. And from the why did they give a guy who blew the game a $10,000 raise department? The case of Tony Linhart. The Baltimore Colts gave Tony a $10,000 raise Sunday after the game to boost his spirit after he missed 3 pretty short field goals. Today, the Baltimore Colts gave Tony Linhart his unconditional release. On tonight's sports quiz, we take you ahead to the winner in the hockey season, Phil Esposito of the New York Rangers, one of the great goal scorers of all times. When he was with the Boston Bruins in 1971, Phil scored the most goals by one player in a single season. The sports quiz question tonight, how many goals did Esposito score that season? We'll have the answer for you tonight at 10 o'clock.
Still working on the Linhart story.
Yeah. They
gave him $10,000 raise
Sunday after the game.
And then fired him today.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then pay him the $10,000.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, the basic money supply is up in defiance of Fed efforts. The presidency is shaky. More banks are raising their prime to record rates. So what does the market do in face of all this negative news? Why, it shoots up 17 points, of course, as today's gain pushed the Dow to its highest level since last fall. Heavy speculation in oil stocks resulted in a 13-point gain in the last hour of trading. Volume hit around the 45 million mark. Taking a look at local issues, pretty healthy. The first two, Beach 37 3/4, Boeing 50 1/4, then Cessna 20 1/8, Coleman 18 3/8, Dillon's 20 1/8, and Heston 10 1/8. KG&E 16 1/2, NCR 76 7/8, that's up 1 3/4, PepsiCo 27 5/8, Lear 25 7/8, ERG 7 13/16, MFY no movement for a long time, they're still at 5, Tomlinson 13 3/4, and Vulcan 32 5/8. On the grain exchange, wheat 3.95 up 1, Milo up 10 at 3.75, corn 2.50 down 3, and soybeans up 6 cents to $7.06. Quotes courtesy R.G. Dickinson and Whitewater Mills. And maybe you didn't know that there are both living lakes and dead lakes, and in a moment we'll see a story about efforts to revive a dead lake. In tonight's news, the White House says it's ready for action in the controversy over Soviet troops in Cuba. Democratic Party Chairman John White has urged the president not to waste any more time announcing for re-election. And Ludvík Svoboda, who was president of Czechoslovakia during the 1968 Soviet-led invasion, died today at the age of 83. Well, even though Kansas is known as the land of wheat fields, there are several fishing lakes and ponds scattered around, but many of those lakes are dying, and Ron Kirsch found one such lake and a young man who's trying to save it.
This body of water is the South Beach Lake at 13th and Webb Road. Since the 1950s, when it was created, it was a haven for fishermen, but not too much anymore. Beach Aircraft, who owns the lake, became concerned. For the news, Ron Kirsch, Television 12.
Good luck, David. That's it for the news. For Tom and Bob, I'm Dennis Schreiber saying the best news is that you're watching. Good night.